Welcome to the Marketing Mortgages Social for Brokers podcast. Today I have with me Lorna of Crest Commercial Finance. Now, Lorna has specialised in the commercial finance field for the last 23 years, but what she didn't really have is a strategy around social media. But since she started that social media strategy, it's all changed. And today we're going to talk about how going hyper-local and using strategies to help increase the reach of her social media posts has really grabbed the attention of her local community and introducers that are passing more business to her. So, Lorna, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you for having me on. This is a new thing for me. I've never done this before, so thank you.
Oh, is this your first podcast, is it?
Yeah, my first ever podcast, yeah.
Oh, awesome. Great. Yeah. So you probably will slip up on words, which I will as well, because I definitely did it on the first one. So that's absolutely fine. And you'll probably sit there sweating as well, because I remember when I did my first one, I was just sat there going, am I saying the right thing? And I just felt it pouring down me. So those are completely normal things to happen.
I'm just more scared about my kids seeing it. I was the teenagers. Mum's not cool.
Oh, no. What I love about the podcast is when people come on, there is that kind of sense of what will people think, what actually happens. It's the complete opposite. People actually applaud you and go, that's incredible. I could never do anything like that. And they almost admire you for doing it.
Yeah. Well, let's hope so.
Lorna will be on BBC News before long doing commercial finance interviews, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on. I really do appreciate it because I know you're busy. Now, before we get into everything about social media and how you run your social media and how it's been really beneficial for you, could you give us a bit of a background of who you are and how you've been running the business for kind of like the last 23 years?
Yeah, so I started life not actually in finance. I worked for an insurance company in my early 20s, and I fell into finance, let's say, because the company I worked for was Direct Line Insurance, and they actually got bought out by RBS, NatWest. So it just so happened that then I was continuous service, and therefore I ended up doing just shy of 23 years in the NatWest Bank, High Street Bank. So I did a variety of different roles.
Okay.
So everything from retail banking to business banking, commercial, and then the latter years when I left was in their corporate teams, covering the breadth and width of the UK, and dealing with and looking after a lot of entrepreneurs. And after that, I left. I worked at an accountancy firm for a couple of years and headed up their sales department for funding. And then decided in 2021, I can do this on my own. It must have been all that training with the entrepreneurs that I'd had at the bank. So been broken now since 2021. So that's kind of the professional side.
So been in the industry so it's the professional side. You've had quite a few years of experience in the industry.
Yeah.
What made you go into commercial finance rather than going into kind of like the residential market?
It's something I worked in business banking probably the latter 10 years whilst I worked at NatWest. So for me, it was kind of just a transition across, maybe transferable skills. I was always interested in why people would set up a business. What were their baby? Okay. What is it that motivated them to do that? And the entrepreneurs that I spoke to over that time, actually, a lot of it was, one, they didn't want to work for a corporate anymore. They just wanted to go out on their own and do it. Some of them fell into it accidentally, due to circumstance perhaps. But I was just always interested. I thought I could do that. At the time, it just had to be timing. And is there ever a good time? I don't know if there is. Eventually I took the plunge and did it. But just businesses,
Sorry, I was just going to say, what was that first day like when you said, right, I'm going on my own, this is it? How was that first day not being in employment?
It was either the most stupidest decision I've made or the brightest. I'm not quite sure still. It's only been 4 years. Terrifying, actually. Yeah, terrifying. It was scary because, if you don't make that money, if you don't, speak to those clients and get that repeat business or you can't pay your mortgage. You're not getting a salary at the end of the month. So yeah, it's scary. But then, the next day comes and you have a to-do list and you get through that. And then the day after comes, and before you know it, a month's gone by. And, oh, yeah, I've got some clients. That's great. And then the next month comes along. And then before you know it, a year's gone past. And, time waits for no one. So you just have to get up and do it.
Yeah, go and have a go. And that there might be people listening to this that are maybe in employed roles and thinking about doing it. And that's what I want to, that's why I started this podcast, to give people that knowledge or access to people that have been out there and done it exactly like Lorna.
I'd just say do it.
Go and do it.
Yeah.
To take that risk. So you're now helping people with commercial finance. So what kind of things do you help people with, Lorna?
Yeah, so if you akin it to maybe like a mortgage advisor would do for residential mortgages, I do that for businesses. And that's the simplest way of describing it. So any business owner out there that is looking for any type of finance, a commercial finance broker should be able to help. So that may be an unsecured business loan. It might be a commercial building that they're buying. It might be a startup business that's looking for funding to get going. But anything to do with business. Not residential, not personal, just business finance.
100% business. And what I love is when we look after Lorna's social media content, and every couple of weeks we'll do like a case study. And I love when you send through the details of the case study, because they can be an eclectic mix.
Yeah.
Can you give us a few examples of maybe how you've helped people over the last 6 months, what you've done for them?
Oh, God. A manufacturing firm. Manufacturing firm not too far from where I live, actually. They were looking at expanding. So they were expanding some of their internal, is it machinery lines, or however they make the thing that they were making. So they needed a new machine for that, but they just needed some funding for that. So we secured some funding for them. I like to support a lot more local customers from where I live.
You? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So anything that anybody that can help with in that area, brilliant. Manufacturing is a massive one at the minute. There's a lot more manufacturing around than what you probably think in and around the UK at the moment. So that's good. I've also helped. I'm just trying to think of the most recent ones now. I've caught me off guard there. The most recent
I think
ones,
one of the ones that you sent was like a pub where they gave I think it was over the winter, they gave that like a bit of a spruce up to get ready for the new,
so that was ready
for the Euros probably.
Yeah, so they were looking at redoing a refurb while it was quiet, ready for and putting a beer garden in, ready for the summer months. Something that they'd not been able to do historically because they'd not been trading long enough, so they had to get some revenue. So they were ready now then to expand. So we helped them with that. We've also looked after a property developer looking for bridging finance for auction properties. So we do quite a lot of auction finance because they have to be a quick turnaround. And again, it's knowing which lenders we can approach who can put that in place quickly for them and execute really. And you can't mess around when you're buying from auction. You have to complete.
Yeah, it's that knowledge, isn't it? Who's going to do it? Who's going to do it quickly for people?
So that's always a good one. That's a good one. And I'm just trying to think of another one. Give you one more example. Only last week actually went to see a gentleman who has bought that was actually a pub, or was a pub in its time, and now it's a supermarket, a local supermarket with apartments above, and they've renovated it and made it into more like a local hub really. So that's nice. That's a good story.
Nice. I like the way that you talk about you like to help local businesses, because you can drive past that and say, "Oh, I helped." Do you know what I mean? I helped facilitate that.
Yeah, and it's good to see the success.
You have a good. Yeah. Sorry, I think there was a bit of a lag. Then I started asking a question, and I think Lorna was going to go off talking about how the local communities, and we'll speak about social media shortly. We'll talk about how social media helps with that. So you've got a big mix of different types of clients. So what does your normal week look like when it comes to running the business?
Well, first things to say is no day is the same. No day is the same. So I could be on client visits, site visits to building sites, let's say, if it's development funding that we're looking for. I could be going to see a startup business that doesn't have an operations unit yet. They might be just, I might meet them in a coffee shop to have that initial like one-to-one. Social media is a big thing, so we have to find time to obviously fit social media in as well. Case studies, or applications. So we have to write applications to funders so that can take, we could be working 3 or 4 hours on a case potentially to put a full application forward to secure lending for clients. So that could be that. Every day is completely different. So we might have a quiet spell, and those quiet spells might be, tidying up our internal CRM systems, or doing our social media posts, or introducing, other people to, from networking perhaps. So networking's a big thing for me as well. So, you've got to be seen on all kind of channels, whether it be face-to-face or online. And then the two will correlate, I guess.
It's just interesting to hear how, I like to ask that question, to hear how people deal with their business day to day. And like you said, with you having to go out a lot, you can't really have a consistent day where you say, like, Tuesdays, I'm going to be in the office doing this. No. Wednesdays, I'll be... Because I didn't realise, I never thought about this from commercial, but I suppose you would have to go out and see sites, wouldn't you, to make sure you understand the site, so you then know which lender to place them with.
Yeah, and do we have due diligence we have to follow. We're governed by the FCA regulator, so we have to make sure that we're meeting these people. Not always, but in person is, that's how I like to do business. I think, from an old-fashioned, when I worked at the bank, I was a business manager, and I just think for me that is the old-fashioned in me, that a business manager is somebody that goes out and you've got that relationship with somebody. So if I can speak to them face to face, then absolutely 100%.
You'll always do it that way. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is a question that is new to the podcast that I really like. What is your number one tool that is your go-to when you're running your business, Lorna?
Tea. No, I'm only joking.
Tea. No, definitely. That's number one. What's number two?
Number two. I'm just trying to think. What do I use? Well, probably my notebook and pen. To be fair, I think I've mentioned.
And this is something we spoke about.
Yeah.
We spoke about this before the podcast started, because you bought one of those Remarkables, didn't you? How did you get on with that Remarkable?
Do you know what? I thought we were going to love it. It was all this new tech. I could carry it around. It was very lightweight. I could have it with me anywhere I wanted. I could take it to meetings. It sounded the dream. It just didn't fit for what I needed. It just didn't feel right. No. I just couldn't. I wanted to be able to keep everything in one place. And I think you can do it with the Remarkable at some point, but I just like a diary, like a notepad, where I can just flick the pages and go back to it. I'm just old school. I just didn't get on with it. And I've got loads of tech. I've got all that kind of other tech, but it just weren't for me. So I just went back to the old-fashioned notebook and pen. Yeah, notebook and pen.
And that's the reason I wanted you to talk about that, because there are a lot of people that are saying how amazing the Remarkable is. And yes, I completely get it, completely understandable. But when I speak to people, I use all the technology. Obviously, being social media, I've got to keep up with all the technology, but I still go back to, do you know what I mean? I've got on my desk here an A4 notebook.
Nothing
an
better.
A4 diary. I think that is, and I love that you said that that's your number one tool for running your business. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, social media. Now, this is an area where you'll probably admit before, kind of like last year, you probably didn't really have a strategy of what to post, when to post, how to post. We came on board about 8 months ago, and we've given you a strategy. We've taken it off your hands. We've started doing it. And this podcast is never about pitching our business. We just want to bring value. But what would you say, and it's a tough question, what percentage of leads now come from your social media, Lorna?
Wow. I should probably monitor this a little bit more, shouldn't I? But I think probably...
It's tough too, though. It's tough too.
It is. I think I'd say a combination of social media and in-person networking. I think at least 80%. Social
Wow, is that
media,
high? Okay.
yeah, I definitely from seeing me on social media, then meeting me in person at networking events, and having the two together is the right balance for me now. And I'm definitely being seen and heard a lot more on social media. I'm being shared a lot more on social media, which is brilliant. And contributing to other people as well. So yeah, I think if it was just social media, then I'd maybe say 20 or 30%. But
Yeah,
with the
direct.
balance between going out networking, speaking to people one to one, and then them engaging with me on social media, then yeah, I'd say at least 70 or 80%.
And the reason I wanted to ask you that is because social media is a great way to reinforce that brand. So when you go to a networking event, they might have already seen you on social media, or they can do the research for you on social media. And I liken it very much to a billboard. And I always use this analogy, and I think it's a fantastic one. If I don't say so myself, sorry, that was really big-headed, wasn't it? But if you think of if you think of social media as a little town, and your audience are the people walking around that town, and all of your social media posts are billboards all around the town, dotted around the town. So in that town, there's 100 billboards. And as people are walking round, they see one of your billboards. They're not going to see every single billboard in that town, but they might see 3 or 4 every time they go to work, or, you know what I mean, when they're out and about. That person that sees your billboard won't necessarily take a selfie with it or send it to their friend.
Yeah.
They might just look at it and go, Crest Commercial. But then when it comes to them needing that service, they might have heard of your name 3 or 4 times and gone, I'll speak to Lorna because I've seen her stuff around. That's exactly how this organic content should work. And I'm glad you said that, because it reinforces the fact when you go to a networking event, if they look at your social media, you've uploaded 3 times in the last week instead of once in the last 6 months.
That's it. That's exactly it. So I think it does absolutely
And that's the
reinforce the
difference.
name behind the brand, I suppose, which is you don't realise it until like when I worked at NatWest Bank. It's the brand is there. They've already got the brand awareness, so it kind of does the work for you. Whereas when you are, you're a sole trader or a limited company or you're on your own and you're out there, you have to put the efforts in those kind of like pigeonholes, let's say, and bring it all together. But you're right. I think this time last year, I think they'll call it scattergun approach, my social media. That's what mine was last year. But now, thanks to you guys. It's been brilliant.
And that's it. It's giving you that time back, go and do networking events or do your day job. Now, the one thing it has given you time back is to take those posts and push them out for as far and as wide as possible. One of your posts you've actually shared 17 times. Now, you've obviously shared that into local groups. Even Lorna's like, oh, wow, I didn't even realise I'd done that. And that just shows how easy it can be. So how do you find the local Facebook groups for you to share those posts into? How do you find them, Lorna?
So I mean, if we're talking about Facebook specifically, then generally you can just go into your search box at the top and write in, whichever town you're in, and usually it'll come up with a community group or be part of a community group. Ask to be a member, and then hopefully you can repost into those groups as well. Like you say, I'm probably a member of probably 10 or 15 different ones locally, then some nationally as well. But yeah, just find them at the top of the search engine at the top of the Facebook, and then be a member. Get being a member of them. Start sharing other people's content and some of your own.
That's great, because a lot of people don't use Facebook groups at the moment, and Lorna's just explained it perfectly. Just go and search them and start joining them and start reserve half an hour every week just to sit there and go and share them into local groups. It's as easy as that. It will insanely increase the reach. So much so that you've now had people saying, oh, we're seeing you everywhere at the moment, aren't you? You're getting that recognition.
Yeah, they are, yeah. And I suppose it's a perception like, oh, you're everywhere. And in theory, I've probably been out twice to a networking group, maybe. But actually, because I've seen it on social media, then seen me out, it's kind of, there's a perception that you... But it also means that they know that you are you are working you out and you're able to help people. So so if you're proactive, people will
Putting yourself front of mind, aren't you?
Yeah.
And then the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, because the majority of the audience listening to this will be residential mortgage brokers, and residential mortgage brokers are looking for the thing that you have, Lorna, and that's introducers. You have a lot of introducers, don't you? And instead of, when Lorna puts content on her social media, it's not normally geared towards Joe Blogs that runs a florist. Okay, it's geared towards reaching residential brokers or builders or developers that can introduce Joe Blogs to Lorna. So do you have any difference in approach? Like, you have a big thing about sharing other local businesses stuff, don't you?
Yes, yeah.
Talk to us about what's the power of that. How does that help?
Yeah, I think for me, we want to support local, for one. We're all just trying to, get on and do our thing. But also, I'm a specialist in what I do, but not what other people do. So if there's a specialism somewhere else that somebody else can glean from or work with, then share that knowledge around. I'm just a firm believer in sharing that knowledge and that expertise with your network. So if it's somebody that is an accountant, for example, or a local solicitor, then share their post, because they might be able to work with you later, or they might share your post for you as well. So that for me is kind of why I do it. I am not an expert in everything.
Yeah.
You're great at what you do, I'm great at what I do, but I'm not great at residential mortgages, for example. So let's share that out. Because other people might not need my services, but they might need somebody else's. And then they may then recommend me to somebody else when they want my services.
That's it, isn't it? It's building that relationship to say that 6 months down the line, if you shared a post today, a solicitor's post about a local fair that they're appearing at, like a local one. In 6 months, that solicitor might be having a conversation with their client and they go, I need to secure some funding for my cafe. Well, I know Lorna because I've had that prior interaction with her on social media. The second thing is, if Lorna shared a post, say if it was let's say it was a local vets. She shared a post about local vets of all the beautiful animals they've had in this month. What happens is that vet gets a notification to say Crest Commercial Finance reshared your post. Now, just by them seeing your business name, first, it puts you front of mind because there's probably not another commercial broker that's doing that. But secondly, they might have just had a conversation with their partner last night going, I really need to speak about a business loan for the next property that we're going to purchase. Crest Commercial Finance pop up. I go and look at the social media, and I quite like Lorna and the way she runs a business. But two, she's supporting my business. Therefore, I would prefer to support hers than go for a multinational one.
Yeah.
And that's the power of sharing other people's posts, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like I say, I think if we're all just, if people are just in it for themselves, they won't get very far. You need to be part of the community. You need to be part of everyone's community. That's kind of why I do it.
Love that. Fantastic. And that's a great way to kind of bring the podcast to an end. To say thank you, we donate £10 to a charity of your choice. Lorna, which charity did you want us to make a donation to?
So the Glencoe Mountain Rescue, please.
In Scotland. We will make that for you, no problem at all. And if anybody does want to speak to you about commercial finance, either referring to or help with, where's the best place that people can contact you, Lorna?
Either on LinkedIn or Facebook, or my own website.
Perfect. Crest Commercial Finance. And Lorna, if you go onto LinkedIn, her surname is Blackett, which is Blackett.
Yeah.
Perfect. Lorna, thank you so much for giving up your time. I know you're really busy, so thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And reach out to Lorna if you want any help with anything commercial.
Thanks guys. Lorna. Thank you. Bye.